Medicaid clearly is a very popular issue on folks' minds here. Do you believe the Senate will pass a Medicaid expansion bill if the governor doesn't act? Do you believe the legislation is needed either way?
I believe legislation is needed. My colleague, Senator Vince Hughes, has taken the lead to introduce Senate Bill 12. He's also filed a discharge resolution trying to force that action to the floor. And we're in the process that I believe that discharge resolution was filed, I think, Tuesday or Wednesday this past week. As you work it through the timeline, it gets us to the middle of June where we would have hopefully have an opportunity to vote it. I think if it's presented on the Senate floor, it passes. I can't speak to what happens in the House, but my guess is it would pass in the House as well. My hope is that this administration will pull the trigger and make a decision on what we need to do as we go forward. We think it's the appropriate thing to do for a variety of reasons. I've talked to you about the number of jobs. I've talked to you about the infusion of $3 billion into our economy, the impact that it has on our gross state product. I've talked to you about the savings and revenue it's generated. And most importantly, it provides health care coverage, a modest level of health care coverage for over 500,000 working individuals who today go to work every day but don't have the benefit of having health insurance. And as what we talk about as we go forward, incorporating that into what's going to take place with the exchanges and the like that come online in 2014, we think it's the right thing to do from a number of perspectives.
How good a political issue will Medicaid expansion be for the Democrats if Governor Corbett rejects the Medicaid expansion?
Well, we certainly will continue to advocate for it. We think that, as I said earlier, it's the right thing to do, and if we're not successful between now and June 30th, we're not going to stop advocating for it because, as I understand it, we can jump in at a later point in time. But it's going to be our highest priority. We will certainly highlight the disappointment and, again, point out to folks that at a time when the governor's proposing to give an additional $365 million in tax breaks to the business community, and refusing to maybe slow that process down, but at the same time allowing 500,000 folks go without health insurance. Those are how we have to start to frame the conversation, and we fully intend to do so.
Okay, I'm going to jump to other subjects because there's so many topics here. The Senate is holding hearings on Penn State governance issues. Do you think the General Assembly has a role to provide guidance on state-related board governance, and to what extent?
I'm aware of I'm very much aware of the hearings that are taking place. I think the short answer is yes. I think we do have a role, should have a role to play in governance. I think that what has taken place over the past couple of years, particularly at Penn State, has brought to light that there is more that should be done along those lines. We have at least 3 members of our caucus who expressed their clear position: Senator John Blake, Senator John Yadichek, as well as Senator Indy Dinniman, in a variety of ways in which they want to improve. But probably the single biggest issue is the issue of right to know and subjecting our state relateds to that issue. That's a conversation that will take place as we go forward. But I do believe that there's a role that we should be playing along those lines.
You criticized the governor's recent comments, so please explain why Pennsylvania workplaces should tolerate employee preferences.
I'm not suggesting, in my criticism of the governor's comments, I think he misses the point. Our point is that the issue with respect to our economy is not directly related to drug use of employees, and nor am I recommending or fostering an employment base that permits that. That's not what we're saying. What we are saying is that there are a number of issues with respect to how this administration deals with our job growth. We made $900 million in business tax cuts over the course of the past 2 years on the premise that it was going to grow jobs in this Commonwealth, and that's not happening. And now it's time to go back and look at why it's not happening. We've made investments to help stimulate our economy, and it's not working. So we need to look at that. What we don't need to do is start to blame the workforce. And it's not the first time that the governor's made comments along the lines of how workers are viewed in this Commonwealth. During the campaign, you recall, the unemployment numbers were high because folks who are on unemployment were lazy. I don't buy that. That's not accurate, and that's not reflected in people who I know who are out trying to find jobs and working very hard, searching for jobs. The fact of the matter is the jobs aren't there, and we have to change that dynamic. But more importantly, it goes to a mindset, in my opinion, whether it was, and they relate directly to policy issues. The policy issues that drive, that are being driven by this administration are reflected in the comments that are made, and that's what concerns me. Whether it's blaming the unemployed as the reason why we're not doing well as a state as it relates to our job growth and our economy, is wrong. Blaming women and making women turn their head when it comes to looking at the invasive ultrasound procedure, and then coming back and doing a whole host of other types of what I believe women's health issues that are not appropriate for this Commonwealth. That's troublesome to me, and that's bothersome to me, and that's what I think we have to focus on.
A month ago, the Senate President told us there had been no progress on budget negotiations. How have talks advanced in the month and have Democrats benefited? I would suggest that they've advanced slowly. We've had a handful, maybe less than a handful of conversations with our Republican colleagues. Obviously, we were waiting to see what April's numbers look like, but now we're well into the month of May. And so I think those conversations at two different levels. One, you've got the leadership level with myself and Senator Hughes and others, Williams and some Republican leaders, and also at the staff level. And I think at the staff level, things are progressing as usual. We've still got to wait to see where we're at. We'll have a better handle, at the end of May. While May's not a great revenue month for us, I think it'll give us a little more indication in terms of where our numbers might be and what our shortfall might actually be in 2013-14. But they're progressing, but at a much slower pace than they have in years past. At least last year. The year before, in 11-12, I guess that budget we were not participating, unfortunately, but last year we certainly did. Pennsylvania, and you had addressed this in your comments, but I didn't know if there might be more that you could say. Pennsylvania has traditionally been slow to enter a recession and slow to recover. Do you think stalling the capital stock and franchise tax phase-out is wise for businesses who need certainty for planning and investing in the current economy?
It's always something that we have to wrestle with the impact of not doing cuts or doing cuts. Business tax cuts, but I think what we've seen very clearly is that given the cuts that we've made over the course of the past couple of years and not having the outcomes that we had desired, I think it's maybe time that we look at another direction, at least for the short term. I'm not recommending a full-time maintaining of the capital stock and franchise. We're looking at a 2-year freeze to get us back on course because of the shortfall in terms of our revenue. But when you look and see that as it relates to when this administration came in, we were about a 1.5 below the national unemployment rate. Today, we're barely a tick or so above it, and that's not where we need to be. When we look at the other states, I talked to you about the job growth that's non-existent here in Pennsylvania. It's frustrating, and I think we need to take another course of action, at least through this next couple of years, because we've done a number of things on the negative side as it relates to our investments in our school districts. We've cut nearly $1 billion, regardless of what the administration says. We've cut money to our public schools, period. No way around it, and that's harmful. And then when you look at cuts in human service programs, and folks, they cut across everyone. Everybody's impacted by funding that goes into MHMR programs, mental health programs. You go right down the line. All those services that we provide to so many people in this Commonwealth, they've been reduced significantly, and they trickle down to fewer and fewer providers being available in their county level services, and that's frustrating as well. So, we've got to go in a different direction. We've got job growth opportunities as it relates to two areas, Medicaid expansion again and transportation. If we want to grow jobs, that's where you grow them. And then we'll be back on course in 2 years, and hopefully the job growth will begin, as I said earlier, 35,000 jobs in Medicaid expansion, not my numbers from RAND and the Economy League and the Fiscal Office, 35,000 jobs, healthcare delivery type service jobs by 2016. That allows us to be in a position to be able to wean ourselves back off of the capital stock and franchise tax.
On another budget-related question, what spending cuts do you suggest?
What spending cuts do I suggest? I think we begin a conversation with respect to the governor's budget, and we think a number hovering around the governor's budget, even though we may be short, is where we need to go. What we need to do is find ways to fill that hole, and that's what we're recommending. And we're recommending that through the two areas that I've referenced earlier, transportation and Medicaid expansion, as well as a couple of one-time opportunities with respect to the sheet funding and then the capital stock and franchise tax. So our budget plan would not be one that makes significant changes to the governor's budget. It tweaks with some stuff at the end of the day, but we believe that you do Medicaid expansion, you'll be able to cut line items along those lines because it shifts the state money for Medicaid programs off to the federal side. So that's where the reductions would take place at.
An activist group just called on voters to reject the retention of Chief Justice Ron Castile, saying he has presided over numerous scandals and should not be retained. What's your opinion?
Oh, I disagree with that. I don't think that it's appropriate to, I found Justice Castile to be, to have done a good job, and I've got no interest in trying not to retain him.
Pension costs are scheduled to go up under Act 120 by about $1,000 per household over the next few years, and your solution is to do nothing?
Our solution is to follow the plan we put into place with Act 120. And our plan said back 2 years ago that we would put in roughly 4.5% or $500 million every year for 5 years. We would stack it on each other, one on top of the other, and then it sort of levels off with modest growth in the out years. And that was a 24-year plan. We are now year 3 into that. We made an obligation to do that. We think we need to fulfill that obligation. At the end of the day, if you incorporate a number of the governor's proposals, when you put them all together, if I'm not mistaken, and I think the Philadelphia Inquirer just had an editorial just this weekend that reflected that it also increases the unfunded liability by $5 billion. So I'm not sure at the end of the day what the administration's proposal would do to that $1,000 number, but I will tell you that if we carry out Act 120 as designed, we will be certain that we address what needs to be done 21 years out. We will be, the unfunded liability issue will take care of itself at that point in time.
Given the number of Democrats running for governor from the state, do Democrats need a Western Pennsylvania candidate on the ticket? And if so, would you consider a run for lieutenant governor next year?
There are a number of folks who are running. I think at some point in time, we all got to get in a room and figure out what's in our best course, what's in our best, what's best for us as a party to move forward. I think we all know the governor's numbers, and they're not very high right now, and I think that certainly presents an opportunity. Otherwise, you wouldn't have so many highly qualified candidates out there looking to seek the office. There's a lack of Western candidates in this race, whether it be governor or lieutenant governor. I like the work that we've been doing in the Senate. I think we've got a great team, myself and Senator Hughes and Senator Williams and Senator Leyland Leach on the political side who works with us. I think we've got a strong group of folks working, and our goal is to retain a majority, and that's certainly what we're going to work towards. 2014 and 2016, despite the hand we were dealt with respect to this most recent map, redistricting map that was approved, we think we continue to have opportunities, and we're going to pursue those, just as any caucus leader would want to either retain the majority or try to gain a majority. We're going to be able to do that, and I think I have an obligation to work with my caucus members to be able to do that.
And Senator, I'll close with a question you probably won't expect. Was it appropriate for you to build your own addition and not use good union labor?
Wait a minute. Now, let me be clear. It came from Rick Bloomingdale. I do want to mention that Rick is here. I thank you for this AFL support. Fact of the matter is, I hired union carpenters. Work that I wasn't able to do, I did hire union carpenters. Joey Roach, and I'm drawing a blank on the other guy's name. But I went to my friend Jack Brooks back in Allegheny County, and he gave me the guys that do work on his house. So I figured those guys were good enough to come do that. But so I did do that. I did a lot of work by myself. And let me tell you, folks, it's probably the most rewarding thing to be able to, sit there quietly and peacefully and do some work. Now, I would tell you, my wife doesn't watch stuff that I do, but this started out as a closet, and it turned into a huge addition. But folks, it took like 7 years to get done. I don't want you to think that it was done overnight. It was like a 7-year project, and we had plywood walls on 2 parts of our rooms in our dining room, but it's nearly complete. So we have work to do. So, hey, thanks everyone. I enjoyed our conversation. I'm happy to stick around and answer questions you might have. Thanks.